Hi, everybody. I'm Ed
And Krista.
from the krista&ed Show. We're so excited. We have a special guest here today, Matt Deseno. He hails from Malibu, California. We wish we were there right now. It's minus 40. Matt has an MBA. He has a full service marketing agency. You're the founder of BAM, which I love
Bam.
the name. BAM, right? And you're a husband and a soon to be father. And you have offices in Denver and in LA, and you're on this entrepreneurial journey like the rest of us, and you have some exciting new things that you've been working on. And so without further ado, I'd love to hear your story, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Man, my story, it goes back a ways, but I'll stick to the entrepreneurial journey. So ended up, I'm actually from San Diego, ended up in Malibu because I came up to go to school at Pepperdine, which is a university right in Malibu, and I suffered through classes and trying to manage my surf schedule and my class schedule. That was a difficult challenge. But it truly actually goes back to like from childhood. My dad was he was actually a drywaller, and he went to night classes to become a realtor. And so I saw him kind of like make himself, and that was really appealing to me. Like he went into real estate and did amazing in it, and had a great, still has a great career, was able to build his own brokerage and kind of build a dream that he never imagined, because he was coming from well, he grew up in Canada, and he did not have, not that every
Well,
he's struggling because he grew up in Canada. No. The connection there is you guys are up in Canada, but it's unrelated to his path. But he dropped out of school, didn't really pursue education. He got into drywalling like straight out in like high school and just kept on with that career. But not a like huge traditional education, but what was able to do really well in real estate for himself. And so that was really appealing to me. And I think I was just attracted to that. And so very entrepreneurial from a kid, selling stuff on eBay. My parents loved to joke. I was really young. I was probably 5 or 6, and I got the idea to sell dirt. And so, I thought people need dirt. And so I was in the backyard putting dirt into bags of dirt. And the funniest part was I was a horrible marketer. Like I had a product I knew people needed. We had this driveway that was probably 300 feet long, and I didn't put the table on like the curb where people could see me. I'm like as far back away from the street as you can be, with a little table that says bags of dirt for sale. So any other people who have a great product and struggle with marketing, like I came from that background. I understand. You have a good idea. How do you get it in front of people? But actually it was in middle school, I got into coding and programming, and it kind of maintained as a hobby. And when I finished college, it was just like this obvious side hustle that, because of the location I was in Southern California and the time, and Los Angeles, there was a premium price on building websites. And it just kind of grew out of that, like responding to immediate need and demand. And I remember when I started, this was in 2012, I graduated in 2011. And it was around 2012 I realized, hey, I can make this into like a real business. And the lowest price website you could get in Malibu, there was one other agency in Malibu, was $8,000. And I thought, well, I'll just half the price. Like I could survive on one website per month, and I was living with roommates and focused on surfing. And so that's kind of how it started. It just grew out of relationships, out of like a core desire to do what I said I was going to do when I said I was going to do it. And it was weird. It felt like the bar was so low to be a good business owner, but these were just kind of like core values that I held true to myself. And I just thought I'll do good work. And it was around 2015 where we realized so quickly, it was like, you need to bring on other people. That's how the business grows. Like I had limited amount of time. And so hired on other people like programmers and other developers. And then in 2015, I realized I wanted to be on both sides of the balance sheet. Just being a cost center was a little bit difficult because no one's excited about paying it and they want it to cost as little as possible. And if I could be connected to actually like growing a business and bringing in profits, because I knew what a website could do, but oftentimes it was sort of like, check the box, we need to have this, get it done as low as cost as possible. And so that's when we started applying more marketing services. And it was in 2016, we discovered ClickFunnels.
Mhm.
and getting into that whole world and just the, kind of growing along that way. Something that's unique about us now is we do performance-based arrangements. So
Mhm.
we align ourselves perfectly with a business owner's interest, and that is driving actual revenue, actual conversion, not just of like attracting someone who says, hey, it's cool, let's talk, but they actually grow to like you enough to exchange money for
Yeah.
services or goods or whatever it is. And so we align ourselves perfectly with a business owner. And so it's really great. We have good relationships. I love it now. And it's a whole new world of navigating like team dynamics and growing a team culture and
Yeah.
inspiring and thinking like what's next in this whole world that we're going in. So that's kind of the business journey, little
That's
insight into me.
I love it. So, in your agency, like, are all of your people in-house, or do you have any
And,
virtual
well, in-house versus virtual, that's not actually mutually exclusive because we have virtual, like the whole,
content?
from the start, I realized there was a premium on flexibility. So I had even friends out of college
Yeah.
who were working for big companies and they valued being able to work wherever they wanted to work because they
Yeah.
want to work wherever they wanted to work.
Yeah.
So from the start, I was hiring people. So they're W-2 employees, but they could be in Washington or Texas or Denver, the hubs of Los Angeles and Denver. It just so happened, it was almost like a coincidental concentration of people.
Mhm.
It could be timing. I'm sure, honestly, if there was another one, and actually I don't have anyone on my team there, but it felt like Nashville is another place that was like people were just moving to
Yeah.
around, and so these were just like kind of hub cities. Boise could have been another one.
Yeah.
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 And so that was kind of coincidence. So we do have staff team. Now we're in a funny place where people kind of go through this question is, do you grow and want to be this 50, 100 person agency, like
Yeah.
huge agency, or do you kind of find a way to focus more on systems and you sort of have like team leads who are on staff managing contractors?
Yeah.
That's where we've decided to be right now. You ask anybody, they're going to get as many people as you ask different opinions about what's best and what works.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But we are definitely, I like to say we're digitally connected. We hop on like a call together, even if some people are in the same room, it's like,
Yeah.
it's another thing to connect the whole team. We're digitally connected.
Absolutely.
Um, and we definitely leverage contractors for capacity issues.
I love it.
It's funny you bring that up. It's bringing up this whole wash of memories from being in having my full service agency, and my partner at the time was a lawyer, so his idea was the traditional, like, okay, we got to hire every single person for every role, and from an efficiency standpoint and the challenge, you know what I mean? So I like to hear what you're saying. It's like, okay, there's this talent here, and they're maybe in a different city, and everything is so accessible, easy from communication perspective. And at the end of the day, if you communicate that to clients that they're saving money and efficiency.
Well, I think that marketing has changed. It's always going to keep changing and evolving, right? Platforms and whatnot. And I think as an agency, it's actually your job to stay on top of that and make sure that your clients' dollars are going as far as they can, in a
Mhm.
sense, right? So I feel bad for the agencies that are just sticking to the old models because uh, Matt is your competition. No,
No, Matt, no, I got to
no,
tell you, it's like,
I'm just saying that it's easy to do that, right?
yeah.
And your clients don't know what they don't know either.
Mhm.
So I think there's a competitive advantage as well, is going, okay, maybe what worked at one
Mhm.
time, even 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago, like it's changed, but you got to be flexible. But obviously it still has to work for your model as well. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
it's
just, even the idea of adopting like a ClickFunnels or whatever, and that whole marketing concept behind it. There's a lot of agencies that are still saying, okay, well, we need to do a bit of radio, we need to do some print, we need to do, TV. And you're like, oh, is this right? You know what I mean?
no, for sure. I love to joke with people that the first telemarketer crushed it, right? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
people were like, oh my gosh, someone's calling me, and yes, I definitely want to buy whatever you're selling. Or like not everybody gets this one, but like the first prince of Nigeria is actually a millionaire now, right? Because it was
Yeah.
emailing and everyone was like, oh my gosh, the Prince of Nigeria is trying to send me money. I just have to send him 12,000, right? So in marketing,
Yeah.
its unique, like its effectiveness is directly related to its uniqueness. So
Absolutely.
the idea that you can kind of rest on what has worked will continue to work is completely false, because that goes against the law of marketing, which is that like the more unique something is, the more effective it is. And so that's a challenge for anybody who's in the marketing world, the agency world, doing it on behalf of clients. Like we feel even more pressure to continue to innovate,
Yeah.
and you have to plan for it. Like that's actually what we say is like, we live in this like rapid testing, agile environment. We have to. And we tend to, you know, I tell our clients, like, we do tend to care a little bit more because our incentives are perfectly aligned. Like there is no scenario where we continue to do ineffective marketing and exist,
Yeah.
because we can't, like, we invoice when it actually works. And so we can't rest on, you know, what used to work will continue to work. And when we see trends starting to dip, it's like, there's no point in like, well, for diversity's sake, let's just try out this, you know, mailer. Like we do some, like there's almost this
Yeah.
actually kind of reversion to traditional marketing. Like if it's unique now, right? Like if
It makes sense.
like we use handwritten letters,
Yeah.
because those are now unique. Like email is way more accessible, and so getting a handwritten letter actually stands out amongst the crowd. So you can use traditional tactics in a fresh way, and it still can work. But there's no sense in which we're like, well, check the box. You know, you just need a diversified portfolio of marketing efforts. Like that's a waste of money. What you're saying?
Totally.
I know that I've always thought about the whole, like, if you're going to spend $1 and put $1 in and get $2 out, whereas there's a lot of people that have had okay, I have $40,000 this year to budget. It is what it is.
And you're like, but
wait a minute.
Yeah, they have no expectation of return.
Yeah, they're just saying this is what our budget is based on last year's revenue or whatever it may be.
But that's
right?
where, you know, like if you have the education piece, or you're really going deep with your clients, right, and not just taking everybody that comes in the door, you know, they have an understanding of that. Like I said, people don't know what they don't know, and they're typically coming to you because they need help, you know. So yeah.
So how do you, I'm going to pivot here. Like you've got this rapidly growing company, you've got 2 offices, you've got teams, some are in-house, some are, you know, out in, you know, other locations, and you're a husband, and you have a little one coming. Like, how do you navigate and juggle family life and business and everything?
Oh man, that's such a great question. If I had the perfect answer, I don't know. Everybody wishes they had the perfect answer.
Everybody's waiting for it.
Yeah. Let me tell you the secret, how to perfectly manage all of the expectations you have and never feel an ounce of stress ever in your life. Now, I think for me, it's it is a constant reminder of priorities. Like it takes that. I know, like I love Alex Sharfin's the idea of the entrepreneurial hunter, evolutionary hunter. Like I definitely feel that, and that resonates, that there's a joy and a satisfaction in the hunt. And that's kind of cool. That's unique for entrepreneurs. If we've navigated this way that like I get to do things that provide for my family, and I seriously enjoy them. Like I'm not just checking in for the day, even the struggle and the difficulty. I love it. I thrive in it. But you can be consumed by that. And I would say one guiding thing, and this might come back if you ever ask me about my superpower, is there's this amazing book I read. It was called Margin. And the premise was that with the advancements and like technology and all the things we have, we're robbed of margin, right? Just the idea of space, and not just money, because that's another, like, that's a huge thing for me in our business, is like, you need, like, it needs to be cash, it needs to actually be profit. But what about like emotional margin, like space? What about relational margin? Not having every minute of your day calendared out there. And I've created for myself KPIs for different margins and aspects of my life. And so I mentioned the handwriting letters. Like that is actually like a discipline I keep for, like, that's my relational margin KPI. Did I have enough time this week that I could write 3 letters to family, friends, my wife? Did I do that? Like, that's how I know I'm succeeding in this area for whatever it is, right? And so it's sometimes it's easier with the, like, when there's math involved and kind of these key performance indices of, am I succeeding? But that's been a crucial thing for me. It was that book, and kind of realizing, my goodness, like, obviously everyone wants to be profitable, even though like the revenue top line is what gets flaunted all around there. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't keep any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't measuring margin in other aspects of my life. What did it look like to have space? Because what is the point if I kill myself over here and have a ton of, financial margin, but have absolutely no relational margin, no spiritual margin,
Yeah.
no emotional margin.
Yeah.
And so that's been a guiding thing for me. And just kind of like that gut check, and having real written down KPIs. And now I'm going into a season, like you said, anticipating the birth of my son.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What kind of a father do I want to be? And I know, like, here's one of the most difficult things, and it's public. I told it to my wife. I'll tell it to everyone. I'm taking 4 weeks off and 4 months of no travel, and that was like, oh, even as I say it, there's a piece of you. It's like if your job was like whatever, a sport that you love, and so someone's telling you like, well, for this you have to trade off the sport that you love. That's hard. It's like, it feels like, oh, I don't want to sacrifice any of those things. But for me, it's more so a decision of priority. Like, you cannot have everything. And so it's about making sure I'm filling it with the things that I know I won't regret.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
I-
And I'm glad you took the time to create the little man that's coming. That sounded really weird, but you know what? No, it's just, I love it. Like, I'm a mom, we have kids, right? So, and it's true, like, you can totally get caught up in the entrepreneurial world and space, right? And it becomes almost like a drug. Do you know what I mean? Like the adrenaline, the addiction, and all the events and the people you can be around. But at the end of the day, most of us are, in business for a reason. And like, you're gonna, I'm sure it's already started to shift for you, but as soon as your baby is born, you're gonna have a whole new why as to what you're doing, right? So you don't want to neglect those relationships and stuff either. So that's amazing that you're doing
I
that.
really like how you've applied some success tools to this. So you're like, you've got a KPI for like your
He knows how
your
to leverage
emotional and
himself.
relationship. You know what I mean? It's funny because a lot of entrepreneurs will excel in business and get caught up in that, and that's their high, and they don't necessarily spend time on the personal relationships you have, right? So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
So exciting. So when is baby due? Did you say April?
April 24th.
April
Yeah.
4th. We have 2 April babies. So
Okay.
yeah.
Good months.
Yeah, April's a good.
Spring babies are fun.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
right. Yeah, I can't complain.
Awesome. All right. So
So why don't you tell us, we like to ask all of our guests about their superpower. What would you say is your superpower?
That's a great question. So I've gotten in the habit of telling people that my superpower is reading. I actually do love reading. And I attribute a lot of it to like breakthrough, success, innovation. I love reading. It's a super boring one. It's not like that exciting.
oh my gosh.
But I've been toying with this idea, and maybe the more I talk about it, of like this entrepreneur book club. Like so many
I
of
was
us,
just thinking about that yesterday. I'm like, but who would I find?
yeah, so many of us love books, or we're always curious, like, what is this great book? It's another one of those areas of discipline to read.
Yeah.
If you enjoy it, you get into it, you realize this is super fun. But like, if you ask me about, like, we don't even have TV. Like, I couldn't tell you
Yeah. I watch TV.
the latest update of a show. But it's because I just really enjoy reading books. And I think that part of that superpower is then taking what you're reading and finding a way to actually apply it. Like I told you, that book called Margin, and it's by, there's a couple, if you look at the books called Margin, there's probably a billion of them, but this one's by Richard Swenson, Dr. Richard Swenson. I love it because he's coming from like, he's an MD, and he's kind of like saying, of all the patients he sees, it's marginless living that's kind of causing all this ailment. But anywho, reading was what I'd have to say is my superpower. I got into it through audiobooks, and now I've realized getting beyond just reading for kind of like passive association to actually reading for comprehension and like reading slow. And it was honestly, once again, that book Margin about like, what if you had space so that you could read in a way that you could like retain it and really like chew on it and really like apply it into your life and not just feel like you're just listening to audiobooks, constantly and hoping that it's like by association. It's like if I watch enough like professional athletes and just hang out with them, I'll get better versus like, I'm actually going to run the same drills that they're running. Like I'm going to put into practice the things they might talk about, right, and actually do it for myself. And so that has been without a doubt one of the things that wasn't innate in me for sure, from a kid and even into high school and even into college. Like reading was just associated with it was never for pleasure.
Yeah.
It was never for pleasure. It was always homework. And so it's like, I was literate. I knew how to read, but like nobody likes reading. And then there was a shift in business realizing, man, if you want access to people's best thoughts and ideas and practices, they put it down in books. And, and honestly, you could pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for access, and it is the same information that is distilled into the book. And so that's
a really good superpower to have. Especially in the industry that you're in, if you're reading those types of books, it's almost an unfair advantage as well, right? So what you're consuming. One thing that I love is, when you're reading books from people, who, like, we're obviously talking about, entrepreneurship type books or mindset, all that kind of stuff. What I love is that you get to a point where you start to just see patterns almost, right, of habits of these people. And then it starts to give you this, like, wait a minute, like they're no different than I am. It's just that they're doing a few things differently than I'm doing.
They've got some KPIs set up.
They've got some KPIs and morning routines and all that stuff, right? That's
exactly.
Great superpower.
Yeah. No, you've got my brain pumping here. So yeah.
Okay. So do you have any questions for us?
Is this like show questions?
Whatever you want to ask.
Oh my gosh.
A question for both of us or one of us, or I don't know, anything that if you think.
Yeah, my favorite question for couples is, what is the worst argument you've ever had?
What is the worst argument we've ever had? Oh.
Well, whatever you say, I'm going to disagree with you.
He always says anyway.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. What's our worst argument? What has it been over?
I don't know if it's like the worst, but this was like you probably don't even really remember it or not, but like when my son was born, we hadn't quite picked out a name for him, right? We had some toying around.
I liked Loki.
He really wanted to name our baby Loki. So that was like worst for me in the sense of I was vulnerable, I was exhausted, I was tired, and I think I almost gave in, but like everything inside of me was like, this can't happen, it will destroy my boy's life.
He's an April Fool's baby. He was April 1st, so like, okay.
I know that's nothing juicy, but that was like a do or die kind of argument for me, I felt like.
And Ed backed down. That was the resolve.
Yeah, I did.
He had.
I did.
I was like, Loki, what the heck? Anyways, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I'm trying to think of some big fights that we potentially have had.
Like there's so many you just can't.
Yeah, I get vulnerable quick. It's like straight to the.
That's right.
One. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm put.
I want to give you something juicier, but I'm like,
okay, here. One thing we've fought about is, that whole thought of you know, the 5 people that are around you affect who you'll be and what you'll be, right?
Yeah.
Success, everything. And I think in life you go through layers of like the people that are around you, and sometimes not realize that they're like holding you back,
Mm.
right? And she has an innate gut of knowing, um, you know, the people that are good-hearted and are soulful and want to give back and create impact and do all that stuff. And
Then there's your in-laws. I'm just kidding.
yeah,
No, I know. I'm like, we're not even going to go there.
So-
okay, we can change this whole conversation right now. No. But you know, where you're like, hey, can you not clearly see that this is not a good fit? Like, this is, if you want to go forward and grow, and do you know what I mean? So I know we've had some conflict over that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
discerning relationships.
It's good though.
Yeah.
It's good though, right? Because everybody sees different angles on things in life, and you know, yeah.
So you want to talk
And the
about
in-laws.
so you want to talk about in-laws, do you?
Okay, let's hear about
No, I'm
yours.
just kidding.
That's honestly a super shiny part of my life. I love it because a lot of people have conflict there. I have absolutely no conflict with my in-laws.
We don't.
I do love talking about, like, I love talking about the mess. I just love the messiness, right? Like the brokenness, the messiness. Like that's where we really relate to each other. Like none of us. I even hate that. Like my story, it seems like, oh, it's so glossy. It's not glossy. Like there's a ton of junk in there. I remember there was a point. Actually, I mentioned the marketing thing. The real stimulus for that, it was this. So we had just gotten married, and I had like, it was. I mean, we were still in feast and famine, but didn't really know it. So it's like we had like a great first half of the year, and you're like, oh my gosh, life is amazing. You know, like life is always like, this is what I, you know, past results are an indicator of future, results. And so we totally outspent our life. Like we had just gotten married, and it was just like stack, bye. All with this like, well, we're gonna be fine. And I'm like a incredibly meticulous like numbers guy. I actually, there was something like out of my family, one of those like trauma shapes you, becomes another superpower, is I am OCD about money, which is a weird thing, but it was kind of like this ingrained in me. Like I've documented every dime in and out of my life on Excel spreadsheets since 2011.
Yeah.
Like since I graduated college, I can tell you how much I spent on Starbucks in, April of 2015. I have it all logged. And the idea was, if I knew, like if I just knew, because I should tell you, the pain was my parents went through a like horrible scene in their marriage, like really separation. We're going towards divorce by the grace of God, and like just, I don't know, my mom's will, they didn't, but it all crumbled and fell out of 2008. Actually, it was pre that. We were hitting it like 2005, right? My dad was in real estate. It was like, you build up your life, everything's going good. What happens when it crumbles down? I saw like all of these character defects come out of my dad in ways I'd never experienced or wasn't fully aware of, in like blackout rage episodes. And I had this fear, which I only recently discovered this connection. I thought, if I ever got to a place where I didn't have money to provide for my family, somehow I would turn into that version of my dad. And so it was like locked into me, like, I'm going to be disciplined. Anywho, get to 2015, and it was like, it was happening. What was happening? People were cutting down, whatever. A lot of like utility clients, end of the year, like, we don't want to keep spending, whatever. They're cutting it out. They're pushing off stuff for January. It's all going to be January. And November, December, it was like this tight point, the first time ever in my life, where we literally lived on credit cards. Like, it was like, we did not have the money. I could not cash flow our existence. I could not cash flow paying employee, or like, like I never wanted to fire and anything like that. So I was going into debt, terrifying. And luckily it was short, and there was like, the light was in January. It was just like a deferment sort of a thing. But that's when I realized, man, if people are paying, like if their investment returns more than they're spending, they're never going to want to stop. There's no season when you don't want to make more money. Like, there are seasons where you don't want to spend more money. But anywho, there's I don't know what that was about. Just the messiness. That was for
Yeah.
sure a hard thing in our marriage. And then to come to terms, like, she's known me as like this good provider. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did it wrong. Like, I just anticipated wrong. Or even if it was like just a time issue, it still was incredibly painful and
Yeah.
super hard.
Yeah, and you know what? That's part of entrepreneurship too, though. There's a lot of ups and there's a lot of down. I mean, we can totally relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. The tide lets out and the rocks show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's real.
I love the beach metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. You're surfing and right. So yeah, it's funny how that works. And but from that you've learned, right? And you kind of push forward and move on and go, okay, how am I gonna make sure that that doesn't happen again, right?
I think that's awesome though that you've done that. Like that seems like so crazy and a lot of work, but like if you know like where your money's going down to the penny, like it's probably crazy. Well, no, it's not probably crazy. It is crazy when you do start to look at the numbers, how much sometimes, we waste our money on silly things, right? So when it's visible, you can be in control of it. So
How many times did I go to Starbucks this month?
what?
Holy crap, that's a
It's-
mortgage payment.
It's funny because actually we had never budgeted before until this year.
Yeah.
So I always tracked and all like knew. It was just like I didn't necessarily have effect. I was kind of managing by the cash flows, right? It was just like if we're taking in more money than we're putting out, like
Yeah.
things are fine, it's all good. And it really was actually only this year where we did Dave Ramsey. Well, actually, this is what ended up happening. So they needed someone to lead the Dave Ramsey thing at our church, and we'd never done Dave Ramsey, but we're like, sure, well, we're a warm body, like I'll lead for this. So, which apparently they prefer because they don't like the whole idea is like, we don't need another guru. It's just like it's just being vulnerable and going through the practice of this. And for us, it was a different discipline because we have like an investment property and done other sort of financial goals, but especially planning for having like a family, it was a shift in us to think like, hey, what, like we never, like I just live in the world of entrepreneurship and leveraging money and blah, 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 and all that like financing arbitrage. But like, hey, what a cool gift if like we had no mortgage on our house.
Yeah.
Like, what if we like cracked down and it, for different people coming to different times, like for us, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, we need to get out of debt. It was like, well, technically that is debt. We just all take mortgages for granted. Like, I'll have it for 30 years.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, what if we put in a plan? It's like, we get rid of this in 10 years and our kids, like, what kind of legacy does that bring? Because both of us have parents who are still paying off mortgages, and they're probably whatever, getting to the end of the life of it. But what does that do for our family? What does that do for us and the freedom to feel like we literally can do anything? Like it's just like whatever, it just opens up possibility of what we could do. And so that was kind of a fun practice for us also to come to like a meeting place where we're usually on just in two different hands. Like we love and respect each other and make like great partners and teammates, but not usually in the finance stuff, in the business stuff. Like it was almost very separate where like that was my world and she was, happily ambivalent about it. And so it was kind of a fun thing to go together and see how it's a cool practice to feel like it's like great teams. They don't win championships accidentally.
Yeah.
Like they had a game plan, they had a shared vision, they knew exactly where they were going and they didn't lose sight of it. Like, and so we kind of saw to do exceptional things like, I don't know, pay off your house before you're 35. You're not going to stumble into that. You can wander into negative things. You don't wander into amazing accomplishments. Like you have to have a plan and a shared vision with that. So.
Absolutely. And I love that you say that because I think a lot of people just think, it's easy for people to look at other people and say, oh, well, you were able to do that because, no, with some planning and hard work, it's possible, man.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Really.
It's true.
Beautiful. I love your outlook on stuff,
I know.
So I have a blanket on here. So
It's
I already
Canada.
told you
It's chilly.
I wasn't supposed to show it, but I had to pull it
But
up.
did you notice that her blankie matches in the exact color of her outfit?
And my
It's like-
scrunchie.
Planning.
Or my daughter's scrunchie. I should say. Whatever, let's be honest.
So Matt, if our listeners wanted to get in contact with you, what would be the best way to do that?
Now, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I think the best way to do it is I also have a podcast. And so if you like listening to shows, why not just go find the other podcast? You hear more about me. But the website for that is epicowners.com. And that's very similar kind of style, but we're just talking to fun, epic business owners, talking about life and business. And that's a great way to hear more about what I'm doing.
Epicowners.com. Awesome. So we will link that for our listeners, our viewers.
Yeah.
And yeah, great conversation. Thank you so
you.
much for joining
Appreciate
us
it.
today.
Totally. Thank you guys for having me.
All right.
And sharing your journey. And I wish all the best to you and your wife and your baby if we don't, catch up or talk before then. And
we need to talk to you after 2 months.
It's going to be an amazing year for you.
Yeah. Congrats.
Okay. Thank you.